Anyhow, what do we want to talk about today? We want to talk about the issues that are in the forefront of the news when it comes to our health, and that's cognitive problems. I mean, 24/7, 7 days a week, we're seeing all this stuff in the press because of the president. And the fact that he's got something going on, which is tied to cognition, dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, all neurological problems. And I'm going to support the fact that there are ways to slow this process down or even prevent it. He could have Alzheimer's. He could have dementia leading to Alzheimer's. He can have a combination of both Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I think they call it Lewy body disease. But the fact is, lifestyle has a lot to do with many of these different conditions. Many. And there was some research out a few years ago and just some recent stuff that ties lifestyle origin to Alzheimer's. This is from BYU a few years back. For years, research to pin down the underlying cause of Alzheimer's disease has been focused on plaque found to be building up in the brain of Alzheimer's patients. But treatments targeted at breaking down that buildup has been ineffective in restoring cognitive function, suggesting that the buildup may be a side effect of Alzheimer's disease and not the cause itself. A study from a team of BYU researchers finds novel cellular level support for an alternative theory that is growing in strength. I can tell you it's not growing, it's big, it's there. Alzheimer's could actually be a result of metabolic dysfunction in the brain. In other words, there is growing evidence that diet and lifestyle are at the heart of Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease is increasingly being referred to as insulin resistance of the brain, or type 3 diabetes. Our research, this is by Dr. Bickman, professor of physiology and developmental biology at BYU, our research shows there is likely a lifestyle origin to the disease, at least to some degree. The BYU research team examined RNA sequences in 240 postpartum Alzheimer's disease impacted brains. They were looking specifically at the gene expression of nervous system support cells during two types of metabolism. Now listen to this closely, ladies and gentlemen. Glucose, that's carbohydrate, where carbohydrates are broken down to provide energy, and something called ketolytic metabolism. Ketolytic metabolism involves the brain creating energy from ketones, molecules made in our body when the hormone insulin is low and we are burning relatively higher amounts of fat. The popular keto diet is named after the process since the low-carb, high-protein diet lowers insulin levels and causes the body to burn fat instead of carbs and produce ketones. Researchers found widespread glucose metabolism impairment in those nervous system support cells of the brains of former Alzheimer's disease patients, but limited ketolytic metabolism impairment. In other words, they were able to burn ketones for fuel. The finding is significant because the brain is like a hybrid engine with the ability to get its fuel from glucose, carbohydrates, or fat. But in the Alzheimer's patients' brains, there appear to be fundamental genetic defects in the brain's ability to use carbohydrates. What we are finding is that a real problem in the insidious development of Alzheimer's disease is that most people never have any ketones because of the way we eat. Most people eat starchy meals as bread, rice, pasta, corn products all the time, and their insulin is so elevated that the brain is starving in a sea of carbohydrates. we turned the hybrid engine of our brains into a monofuel system that just fails to thrive. And the brain, which is progressively becoming deficient in its ability to use carbohydrates, is now crying out for help. It's starving in the midst of plenty. The body is swimming in a sea of glucose, but the brain just can't use it. The inability to use glucose increases the value of ketones. However, because the average person is eating insulin-spiking foods so frequently, there's never any ketones available to the brain, Bickman said. I look at these findings as a problem we've created and that we're making it worse. Previous research has observed the brains of patients or people with Alzheimer's have a quantifiable reduction in the ability to take in and use carbohydrates. This paper is the first to show it actually happens at the cellular level. It's a significant contribution to the growing paradigm shift in regards to significant view of the causes of Alzheimer's. Why isn't this in the press? And so they introduced a new Alzheimer's drug instead of talking about lifestyle. Then we've got this article right in front of me, just out earlier this year. Keto diet prevents early memory decline in mice. It goes on to say, a new study from researchers at the University of California, Davis, shows a ketogenic diet significantly delays the early stages of Alzheimer's related to memory loss in mice. The early memory loss is comparable to mild cognitive impairment in humans that precedes full-blown Alzheimer's. The study was published in the Nature Group journal Communications Biology. The ketogenic diet is a low-carbohydrate, high-fat, and moderate protein diet which shifts the body's metabolism from using glucose, carbohydrates, as the main fuel source to burning fat and producing ketones for energy. U.S. Davis research has previously found that mice live 13% longer on a ketogenic diet. This should be front and center in the media right now, because the American diet is so sick and overloaded with processed carbohydrates that we're making our population sicker and sicker and sicker and sicker. So who benefits from this? Not you, not me. I'm nearly 70 years of age, and I guarantee you my cognitive functions are not inhibited. But I followed this way of eating for many, many years. We're not meant to overload the system with a food source that was not natural to our ancestors. Highly processed carbohydrate foods were supposed to burn fat for energy, particularly at times when we didn't have food available. Here's one for you. You can go for 5 weeks without eating. Did you know that? What do you use? You use fat for fuel stored in the body. Again, we're going to get back to this article from UC Davis, University of California, Davis, okay, on Alzheimer's and the keto diet. And this is all new information from them, but what I referred to earlier from BYU was from a few years ago. It says this new study, which shows up on that research, found that the molecule beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB, plays a pivotal role in preventing early memory decline. It decreases almost sevenfold on the it increases sevenfold on the ketogenic diet. The data support the idea that the ketogenic diet in general and BHB specifically delays mild cognitive impairment, and it may delay full-blown Alzheimer's disease, said co-corresponding author Gino Cortopassi, a biochemist and pharmacologist with UC Davis School of Veterinary Medicine. The data clearly doesn't support the idea this is going to eliminate Alzheimer's entirely, but the science say that the molecule can definitely help. They observed amazing abilities of BHB to improve the function of synapses, small structures that connect all nerves in the brain. When nerve cells are better connected, the memory problems and mild cognitive impairment are improved. What else can I say? So you could take this stuff orally. I take this daily, along with my diet, the Eat Like Lance diet, the low-carb diet. There's nothing What are the benefits you're going to get? Low carb, decreased blood sugar. Decreased blood sugar, less diabetes. Less diabetes, less heart disease. Less heart disease, less money out of your pocket treating it. Less need to take statins, less need to take any blood pressure drugs, because when you control your diet and control your lifestyle, the need for medications go way down. It saves you big bucks. Now, this is not, I'm not saying it's completely going to eliminate all the medications you take, but it can greatly reduce it. So it can reduce your out-of-pocket expenses that's going to occur as you get older. I know. Again, I'm close to 70. Just turned 69 a couple weeks ago. And so you're not taking the money that you've been saving up all your life to enjoy yourself, spending it on what? Medications. I see people all the time who bring a whole bag of their medication with them to show me what they're taking. I don't tell them not to take them. I just say you need to change your lifestyle. I had a young lady a few weeks back in her 40s on 15 different drugs, type 2 diabetic. I said, you got to change your diet. She looked at me. Nothing's happened. Hasn't done it. The only one who can make these differences in the outcome of either something like dementia or Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or MS or heart disease or your increased risk for cancer, okay, any of these conditions, is you. If you follow a healthy lifestyle, your chance of getting sick goes down. The chance of getting better goes way up. Because sooner or later, something's going to happen. You're going to have a health crisis. The outcome is either you come through it or you don't. And coming through it is tied largely to the kind of condition you're in. Externally, internally. Because internally, the condition you're in is largely tied to what you're putting in your mouth, what you eat. I mean, I'm a people watcher. I do most of the grocery shopping because I enjoy it, and I get to know the people in the store, and they get to know me, and we chit-chat and stuff like that. But I can tell you sometimes some of the people, when they're pushing in, what they're putting in their shopping carts, I just want to stop them and say, you know, you need to really rethink that. They have all these packages of soda in there and all kinds of processed foods, and they're walking around and they can hardly move because there's, oh boy. And they're driving around in those carts, you know, loading up the shopping cart with all the junk food. It's what we put in our mouth. That controls the inside of the body that you can't see. And even though I'm a proponent of exercise because it's so effective on your well-being, you cannot exercise off a bad diet. I'm sorry to say that. The only way to fix the inside is what you put in from the outside through the mouth. That's nutrition. Jack LaLanne proved that many years ago when he said that nutrition is king, exercise is queen, and the two combined make a kingdom. Very true. You can't buy that in a bottle. You can't get that in a shot or a pill. You get that in lifestyle. Why enjoy the best part of your life, boomers, in a panic state, afraid to leave town as something may happen dramatically because you're taking bagfuls of pills and you're afraid that you're too far away from a doctor or a hospital? What happens if you're out of town? You can cut the fear down by taking better care of yourself. And we're going to have a doctor on at the bottom of the hour. He's my personal doctor, Dr. Zuki Jasser, We're going to talk more about the problems that the president is having, particularly more recently. He's running for a congressional seat 4 here in the state of Arizona. He'll be on at the bottom of the hour after the news break. But the only way we can deal with this is that each one of us takes the bull by the horn and makes a commitment to ourselves that 75% of our health is tied into what? Tied into us. You can have the best health care in the world, which we have. But if you're in terrible shape, that health care is not going to do what it can possibly do, which is to save your life. Only you can do that. So next time you go shopping, take some of the tips that Dr. Fitness gives to his clients. Shop the outer perimeter of the grocery store. That's called the safe zone. Why is that, Dr. Fitness? That's where fresh food is. When I go in the Fry's grocery store off of 67th Avenue and Happy Valley Road, that's where I shop. To the right as I walk in is the produce section. What do I get there? I get salads, organic lettuce, things like that. Tomatoes, onions, cucumbers. I get a small amount of fruit, mostly berries. I'm giving my diet away now. Then I make my way to the butcher meat section. What do I get there? Chicken. I get meat. I get fish. Then I make my way around to the dairy section. I get my wife some cottage cheese, yogurt, unsweetened. Then I make my way out of the store. Low carbohydrate foods, unprocessed, good for us. FYI, and as I said earlier, I was going to have my own personal doctor, Dr. Zuki Jasser, join us right now. And he's running for the congressional seat number 4 as a Republican, and he's been with me. Hi, Doc. How are you, by the way?
Great to be with you, Lance. Thank you.
You've been my doctor since 2001, so about half my life.
And it's been an honor. I've been proud to be your doc, and if only all patients were as engaged in health as you, we would be a much healthier nation.
I appreciate that. I really do, and I agree with you totally on that. I try to convince them every week. Believe me, I've been hammering at them for 30-some plus years, and this last couple of weeks we've been inundated with all this information on the president, and particularly after the debate that he had against former President Trump, and it was quite obvious he has definitely some things going on. And if you can share some information with what you observed yourself and what we can do as citizens and as patients of the doctors that are out to so many that love their patients, to help to keep us from getting the same condition that our president's in.
Amen. And as you and I have navigated in your own health and everybody's health, healthcare is a partnership with your doctor, with your family, with your community. And ultimately, as we look at our president, it's interesting. We talk about diagnoses as if asking him, has he had a cognitive eval, et cetera. And, it's one thing to be compost mentis and have the ability to guide your own life, make your own decisions, whether you're going to drive, whether you're going to use the microwave or the stove. But it's another thing to run the free world. It's another thing to have executive function that requires the most complicated, complex prioritization of what you're going to do hour to hour, minute to minute. And this is the issue. Is as a doctor, as you know, I navigate care with patients that include physicians, pilots, drivers, folks that have other responsibilities. And when we address the president's personal health, there's a reason his physician posts his physical exam every year. There's a reason that's relevant is just as any publicly traded company, the board of directors has a fiduciary responsibility that the CEO isn't going to drive the company into the ground because he has no cognitive awareness of what's happening moment to moment. And variable cognition, as we look at cognitive impairment, they're talking about Parkinson's and other diagnoses that the president may have. Parkinson's is a motor disorder, is a movement disorder. It's not a cognitive disorder.
Right.
It does have one narrow endpoint that includes a Parkinson's-related dementia, but the vast majority of patients that begin with early cognitive impairment, advanced to moderate, and then advanced cognitive impairment usually have either senile degeneration of the brain, which means we really don't know what's causing it, or they have a genetic type of Alzheimer's dementia. And these things are not, you don't need to be a specialist to navigate them. We all know there are millions of families in America that deal with this with their parents and with our loved ones, and you can tell when somebody, is occasionally their mouth, their verbalizations are not connected to cognition. And we didn't need the debate last week to make that conclusion on President Biden. I was talking about it on Newsmax and Fox and other places where I was hoping people would listen before he was elected last time, saying that, he did not have the capacity to be the leader of the free world. And while he may have the capacity to make personal decisions, it's a much more complex issue, and you don't have to have a specific diagnosis. And this is where the American people have been lied to. And this is what bothers me, is that every family I deal with, most of the time, a physician sometimes that should not be practicing, it will take me a conference with the family, with others, because more often than not, these A-plus personalities have very larger-than-life egos, and their cognition is far behind their ego.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's not them that's going to say, oh, yes, I can't do it, I don't have. Rarely does the A-plus end up saying, yes, I'm going to step down. It usually involves an intervention from the family and elsewhere. And this is where this guy lives in the biggest bubble on the planet, and yet is being facilitated to lie to the American people because of political expediency. And then my opponent, in this race, who we want to retire, Greg Stanton, who's been missing in action, all of a sudden now makes a press release because he realizes for political expediency that this, the guy who's been in hibernation, Greg Stanton, has been 100% rubber stamp for Biden, all of a sudden releases a press release yesterday saying, oh, Biden should step down, et cetera. Well, again, the American people, I think, are savvier than to know that, Stanton all of a sudden cares about, how the faculty of the president.
You got that right. And, of course, it'd be taped. And, just our conversation with Dr. Jasser, and, of course, the issues going on in government now with the president and with neurodegenerative diseases and cognition and dementia and stuff like that. And I try to link all this stuff to lifestyle. And I dig out all kinds of material to read and research, cross-reference. And I'm telling you, a lot of the problems we're having today when it comes to people getting degenerative issues like, Alzheimer's, dementia, can't go on and on, MS, Parkinson's, some of it's tied into our diet and exercise, or lack of it. This is from National Library of Medicine. Effects of the ketogenic diet on neuroinflammation and neurodegenerative diseases. Abstract. A ketogenic diet is a low-carbohydrate, high-fat, and adequate protein diet. As a diet mimicking fasting, it triggers the production of ketone bodies and brings the body into a state of ketosis. Recent and accumulating studies on humans and animal models have shown that ketogenic diet is beneficial for neurodegenerative diseases through modulating central and peripheral metabolism, mitochondrial function, inflammation, oxidative stress, autophagy, and gut microbiome. Complicated interplay of metabolism, gut microbiome, and other mechanisms can regulate neuroinflammation and neurodegenerative diseases by activating multiple molecular and cellular pathways. In this review, we detail the physiological basis of ketogenic diets, its function in regulating neuroinflammation, and its protective role in normal brain aging and neurodegenerative diseases, such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS, and Huntington's disease. We aim to elucidate the underlying neuroinflammatory mechanisms of ketogenic diet therapies and neurodegenerative diseases and provide novel insights into the application of neurodegenerative disease prevention and treatment. The conclusion: the prevalence of neurodegenerative disease disorders is increasing owing to lifespan extension and under healthy aging. You got that? Under healthy aging. Given that there is currently no cure nor a disease-modifying therapy available for neurodegenerative disease, identifying preventive interventions and therapeutic strategies is crucial to delay the onset of neurodegenerative disease and slow progression. From the recognition that the ketogenic diet is not merely a traditional therapy of epilepsy, but it also plays a role in neuroprotective role in neurodegenerative diseases. It has been suggested the keto diet might be a promising way to protect the multiple symptoms of neurodegenerative diseases. Numerous studies have shown the ketogenic diet contributes to energy metabolism, oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, the apoptosis of neurodegenerative diseases through pleiotropic mechanisms. In this review, we summarize the beneficial effect of the ketogenic diet in regulating neuroinflammation and provide a comprehensive overview of experimental and clinical evidence of the ketogenic diet and normal brain aging and neurodegenerative diseases. In other words, get on this way of eating. This study was done, it was published in the magazine Aging in July of 2022. This should be front in the media. They should be discussing how bad the American diet is and get a handle on it. And until we do that, this is not going to clear itself up. We're going to see more and more, we're going to see an explosion in Alzheimer's, which they're talking about already. And the only one who benefits from this stuff is Big Pharma. Big Pharma. Look at what's going on with Zantac. Hundreds of millions of dollars they're paying out now from lawsuits. Remember for digestive issues? They pulled that product a few years back. It's tied to Crohn's disease, all kinds of cancers. In fact, I'll read them off to you. Effective Zantac: liver cancer, prostate cancer, stomach cancer, diarrhea, cardiovascular disease, constipation, anemia, fatigue, bladder cancer, lung cancer, stomach pain, esophageal cancer, chest pain, dizziness, blurred vision, fever, kidney cancer, pancreatic cancer, appetite loss, nausea, colorectal cancer, infertility, dark urine. This is from one drug. Have you been taking this out? The number one selling medication over the counter is for digestive issues, antacids. And you can buy a lot of this stuff now over the counter because the patents are up. Everything's tied together. That's how God created the body. And all of a sudden you got these issues. Who cares if you get a couple $1 million if you have cancer? What good is it going to do you? Pancreatic cancer? Really? Lung cancer? Stomach cancer? Liver cancer? Come on now. Why can't we change our diets? I've been pushing this for so many years now. Eat like Lance. Eat like Lance. I was low carbohydrate before it was popular. I've been doing this, eating this way since the mid 1990s, 93 maybe a little bit earlier than that. A lot of these guys who jumped on the bandwagon been the last 10 years, maybe. A lot of them were little kids, and some of them weren't even born when I was doing this. They got it right. And thank God they got it right, because now the media, they can't ignore this. Front and center. Front and center. No doubt about it. And they share this with him. This is one of my latest blood profiles. This way of eating. Because I'm a living example of this way of eating. Blood sugar, glucose. This is fasting now. 79. Total cholesterol, 193. Triglycerides, 34. HDL cholesterol, 85. PSA, 0.12. 0.12, yes. That's literally no inflammation. 0.12 of the PSA. And guys, I know you know what that is. So lifestyle has a lot to do with this, and nutrition is a major component of it. Like Jack LaLanne said, nutrition is king, exercise is queen. Together they make a kingdom. You can't get around it.